My name is Cora and welcome to Craftopia, where we are creating a safe space for artists and crafters of all ages and experience levels to learn, create, explore, and grow. I'd like to invite you to check out our website at www.crafttopiawa.com, where you can learn more about our organization and vision and see a list of upcoming classes. You can also follow us on social media at CrafttopiaWA. Now, pull up a chair, get comfortable, and let's get crafty.
Hi friends, today we're going to be doing some rainbow weaving on our little paper plate. If you're using a kit from Craftopia, you already have everything that you need to complete this craft. However, depending on the style of weaving you want to do, a pair of scissors might come in handy, so you might want to grab those, although they are not necessary to complete this project. So your kit is going to come with a variety of color yarns. I'm actually just digging in my scrap bin, so my yarns are going to look a little bit different colored than what you have in your kit. And you're also going to have one ball of kind of a neutral colored yarn, and it's cotton yarn, so it's not going to be as stretchy as these others. And the cotton yarn is what you're going to want to start with first. So go ahead and grab that. We're going to use that to wrap our plate. But before we get started, I should also mention that we did include some crayons. So if you want to color, draw a design or a background on your plate before we start weaving, now would be an excellent time to do that. I am not going to go ahead and do that on mine because I want my rainbow weaving to be the centerpiece, the attraction, and everything that you see there. So grab your neutral color. It should be some sort of creamy, beigey, off-white color. We are going to start with that in order to create our loom. So your paper plate has a whole bunch of notches cut up into the top. We just did kind of a random number equally spaced across, and then you've got one notch in the center. You are welcome to use as many or as few of those notches as you want, or if you'd like to, you can actually go through and cut even more notches if you want to have more pieces to weave through. This notch here is going to get full, so we're going to want to make sure we pay close attention to it while we are wrapping. So take the tail of your neutral colored yarn and give yourself a couple of inches. So mine's about as long as my hand is. And we're just going to tuck that. You can choose which side you want to be the front. It doesn't really matter. We're going to tuck that on. What we're going to use is the back side. I'm going to use my fingers here to kind of hold it off to the side and pinch it in place while I do my wrapping. That way, if I tug on it, it doesn't come out. We're going to wrap around and around our plate this time. So doesn't matter which side you start with, it's all going to end up in the end the same way. So I'm just going to take my yarn from that center slit. I'm going to go through my first slit over here on the side, come back up through my center slit. These first couple ones, or these ones on the sides, are a little tricky because the angle that they're at. Then go up to my next slit, do the same thing through my slit, and back up through that center. Now we're just going to keep going around and around until we have as many or all of our slits as we want. We're going to do our best to try to keep our yarn laying flat next to each other because we are going to end up weaving pretty far down here. And so the more that they can lay next to each other as opposed to clumping up, the better. Although some clumping is going to happen since there's only one slit down there. Just do what you can. Ooh, I got a really big knot in the middle of my yarn. I'm going to have to cut that and start again because I don't think I can fix that. So I'm just going to cut those two pieces. I don't want my knot to show, so I'm going to tie it on the back really quick. Yours should not have that. I was trying to pay really good attention as I was going through all of my yarn pieces to make sure that you got some nice yarn without any really weird clumps, although all yarn will have ties somewhere along the way. So it is possible that you'll get a weird knot in yours. And you can choose what you want to do with it based on your preferences. Okay. So I am trying to keep these pieces pretty tight. I don't want them to be too loosey-goosey, but not so tight also that they curl in my paper plate. So they should lay pretty flat with your plate, regardless of which side you're using. So don't pull them too tight, but we also don't want them too loose. Otherwise, our little woven pieces won't stay in place. All right, so here's our last one on the plate. Again, see my little centerpiece there is getting kind of full. I'm just going to squeeze it in here. And then find that first little tail that I started with. There it is. I'm going to tie a knot with those two together on the back side of my weaving plate so that they won't fall out. Just crisscross and through the hole, and then again crisscross through the hole to tie a nice double knot. And I will get rid of my tails. You can also just weave them into the back side if you don't have scissors available. Okay, so here is our little rainbow loom that we're going to work on. I recommend starting at the bottom and working your way up, just because this stuff is really tight and a little harder to get to. And the more that you put in here, the harder that's going to be to work with. So I am going to work mine in reverse. You can do any color order you want, but traditionally in a rainbow, you would have your red, your orange, your yellow, your green, your blue, your indigo, which is your dark, dark blue, and then your violet, which is your purple. So I'm going to
So unfortunately, my audio cut out here, so I apologize for having kind of the weird broken up voiceover here as well. So I'm going to start with my purple in the middle. We have two different weaving techniques that you can use for this process. The first is going to create this fun cascade of color off the bottom of your plate and is a little bit easier, but it does use up a little bit more yarn. The second will give you a really clean finish to your rainbow and will give you the ability to do a lot larger color blocks. So I'm going to show you both of those, but either way, your process to start is going to be the same. You're going to find the end here, and we're just going to weave over and under every other string. Now, it doesn't matter whether you start over or whether you start under, as long as you're making sure that whichever you do the opposite on the next string. So I do like to start under. I don't know why, it's just my thing. And so then we just go over, under. Now I am doing this pretty high up on the plate just to make it easier to get through these pieces. And then once we have it all the way across, we're going to go ahead and pull it down and tight to the bottom, but not so tight that we accidentally pull those pieces out. So you can see I've got this little bridge of color there. It's going to be a little bit harder to see down here just because those strings are so close together, but as we get further up, we'll be able to see a little better. So this is where if you wanted to cut it off, you could cut your tails so that they're about the same length. If you don't want to cut it off and you want to weave them in, then we will weave those little ends in at the very, very end of the whole thing. So grabbing your other end now, or your new end if you trimmed it off, we're going to start weaving, but we want to make sure that we're going the opposite direction of where we just went. So if your string is on the bottom of your cross string, then we want to make sure that we are repeating the opposite direction. Otherwise, the whole thing will just fall out. So I started under, which means I'm going to go over this time, and then under the second one, over and under. You should be able to see when you push them down together whether or not they're on opposites. Um, and then we're just going to repeat this process all the way across. So if you are doing the clean cut version without the fringe, this is what it'll look like. You'll want to make sure that you're putting your finger down to hold it. That way you don't pull too tight. And you're going to want to pull your string all the way through every single time. And this will not leave the fringe on the bottom. But if you pull too tight, the whole thing is going to bunch off. So very, very important that we pull just enough so that it's touching that cross string, but not actually pulling on it. So as you can see here, it does leave a nice clean edge to make that rainbow look. And then you would just continue with this going back the opposite direction, over, under, or under, over, depending on where you ended, until you have as much color as you want to have done. Once you finish with your stripe of this color, however thick or thin you want it to be, you will just grab your next color and continue on this way with your color choice in your color order until you have everything filled in. You'll want to leave a teeny bit of a gap up at the top so that you don't get it too tight and tear anything. But just continue going back and forth until you have it all full in, making sure to scrunch it down so there's no gaps between your colors and your woven strings until you have as much of your plate covered as you want. All right, so once you've got your plate mostly full, here I am doing my last piece of red.
still going over under, but being a little more gentle because I am very close to the edge of my plate. You can see I've left my fringe down and how it hangs. It's kind of, like I said, is a cascading rainbow off the end of the plate. I really do like doing this. As you're doing this style too, you don't have to be too perfect about where your tails are. If you have some that are shorter and some that are longer, that's not a problem. We can trim them all up at the end, or you can just leave them like that. So got my plate full. I got my little fringy here. If you did decide to go with the clean option and out the fringe, you would want to make sure that you are tying your ends off together. So to do that, you can just grab two ends that are close together, give them a little crisscross applesauce, and then get them tucked up underneath. Nobody would know the difference. You can also put a little dot of glue if you're concerned about them falling out, but that will give you that clean, smooth end instead of the fringy falling down. Now, if you want to hang this, you can just cut a small piece of thread, any color will do. Find about where the center piece is in your weaving up there, tuck it under front or back, and then just give it a little knot, and that will make your plate ready to hang. These are definitely not weatherproof, so I would keep them inside and use them someplace to stare at that will make you happy all spring long.
We hope you had a good time crafting with us today. If you have any questions regarding this project, feel free to leave a comment below or send us an email at info@crafttopiawa.com. And be sure to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on any future crafty